and welcome to Lesson 7. Today we're going to start with the different layers of skin and then move on into skin color and skin appendages. So just reviewing from the end of the last lesson, we talked about how the skin has three major layers: your epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. So we're going to go ahead and start with the epidermis first. And what's really important to know about the epidermis is it's made up of 5 different layers, and we call those layers strata, or stratum for singular. So we're going to start from superficial to deep in this slide. So the most superficial layer is the corneum. So this is the layer that you can actually see right now looking at your skin. Then we have the lucidum, the granulosum, the spinosum, and the basale. And it's important to remember that the epidermis is avascular, meaning there is no blood flow going to these tissues. They actually have to borrow nutrients from the connective tissue of the dermis. So this is a nice picture, and you're going to have to be able to recognize all of these 5 layers based on histology. So the best way to tell if it's the stratum corneum is it's going to be really thick up here. Lucidum is going to be below it. There's a granulosum, the spinosum, and then the very, very bottom layer where you're going to see a bunch of nuclei kind of crunched together is going to be the basale. So the major cell type of your epidermis is a keratinocyte. And basically these are epithelial cells that produce a lot of keratin. Keratin is a really tough fibrous protein. This is what your hair is also made of and your nails. Girls, you may have bought shampoo because it has keratin in it. Keratin is the major protein that gives your hair basically all of that strength. So now we're going to move from layer to layer. We're going to start with the basale, so the one at the very bottom, the deepest layer down here. So we're going to start with the stratum basale. And it receives the most nourishment because it's really getting it down here from the dermis. So we have nutrients that are being given to the epidermis from this dermal layer. It's constantly undergoing cell division, so you're going through mitosis, creating more and more cells. And as you create more and more cells, the older cells get pushed up to the top. So really, it's kind of interesting to think about. Your stratum corneum cells up here were once actually down here in the stratum basale. And as we keep on dividing and dividing, those cells get pushed up. Then we have the spinosum and granulosum above the basale. And all we start to see is the cells begin to basically die and become full of keratin. So they're really producing lots and lots and lots of keratin and starting to actually die off. Once they get into the lucidum, they are going to be dead, and the lucidum is only found in certain areas of the skin. So if you look at the palms of your hands right now and the soles of your feet, this is extra thick skin. This is where we find the stratum lucidum. And then our very top layer is the stratum corneum, so it's the most superficial layer. It's the layer that you can actually see when looking at your skin. And it can be made up of 20 to 30 layers of cells. It's very thick. The cells are shingle-like, so they're really stratified squamous to the max, and they are completely filled with keratin. And this is what gives that body the kind of overcoat. This is your protection kind of aspect of the epidermis. Really thick, dead, strong cells. So just kind of some fun facts. On average, in your lifetime, you're going to shed about 40 pounds of the epidermis, which is just crazy to think about. And really, you have a new epidermis every 25 to 45 days, because we talked about how cells from the stratum basale get pushed up into the stratum corneum. So every 25 to 45 days, you're shedding off cells from the stratum corneum that originated in the stratum basale. So now we're going to talk about melanin and some different things that have different skin colors. So melanin is a pigment that's found in the epidermis, and it's produced by what we call melanocytes. And really, these cells kind of hang out in the stratum basale. And when you're laying out in the sun and tanning, these melanocytes become activated and they surround themselves with the cells of the stratum basale to protect them. So that's actually why you tan, is because you have these melanocytes producing melanin to protect your lower layers of the epidermis. So as melanin is produced in these melanocytes, they actually get in these little vesicles called melanosomes. They travel to the keratinocytes of the stratum basale, and they literally form an umbrella around the cell. And the reason that they want to do this is they want to protect the cell's DNA inside the nucleus from any of the damaging effects from the sun. So if we look here, this is kind of the cool thing. This is a melanocyte. All right, you can see it's making melanin in here, that pigment. And what it does is it literally crawls up to the keratinocytes of the stratum basale, and it basically transfers melanin into those cells. The melanin then surrounds the nucleus. This would be your nucleus right here. The melanin surrounds the nucleus to protect the DNA, and this is ultimately why you tan, is because you have melanin now in those cells causing your skin to be darker. It's all a protective measure. All right, so now we get to move on to the dermis, our second major layer. So if you look, this is all of our epidermis here. This is all epidermis, okay, kind of digging down into there. And then now here is our dermis. And you can see two distinct layers kind of forming. One is kind of ending here, and then here's the other one. This is the papillary layer on top, and then the reticular layer is going to be on the bottom. So the papillary layer, we're talking about the most superficial layer of the dermis here, contains something called dermal papillae. And these are little projections, so little kind of loops sticking out that have capillaries in them. And this is how your epidermis is receiving nutrients, are from these little projections coming up and supplying it with blood, which therefore is your nutrients. We also see that we have pain receptors and touch receptors called Meissner corpuscles in this layer. So the dermal papillae on your hands and your feet, remember these are little projections coming up, they're supplying your epidermis with different nutrients, are formed in patterns, and they actually help your gripping ability with your hands and your feet. So you can probably kind of guess where I'm getting at here. The dermal papillae are what ultimately are going to cause your fingerprints. So that's why everybody's is different. These dermal papillae are actually genetically determined, and that is what your fingerprint is. So if you look at your finger right now, you can see those kind of looped ridges. Those are dermal papillae. So this is kind of a cool picture. This is your fingerprint really, really close up. And you can see all these little projections coming out. Those are your dermal papillae. So ultimately, that is what's giving you your fingerprints. And they really are for gripping. They help you grip things and hold things. Okay, you think about our ancient ancestors, they had to climb trees and grip tools. All right, the reticular layer, the lowest layer of the dermis, basically is going to contain a whole bunch of blood vessels. This is where your sweat and oil glands originate. You also have deep pressure receptors called Pachynian corpuscles, and you have lots and lots and lots of white blood cells or phagocytes, basically acting as a last resort so you don't have any foreign invaders getting into your deeper tissue. Okay, so if we look here, just kind of wanted to do an overview. This would be the reticular layer we're talking about. So you can see sweat glands originating here. These are oil glands right here attached, okay? And over here, this is a Pachynian corpuscle. Here's a closer up version. So you can see it has a little nerve inside of it. And really what it is if someone's pushing on you really hard, this is what's going to detect that. So the reticular layer also is where we find a lot of proteins. We have collagen and elastic fibers in this layer. So this is the layer that actually causes us to get wrinkles as we age, because as we age, these collagen and elastic fibers basically start to lose elasticity, they start to degrade, and collagen is really important because it keeps your skin hydrated with water. So as these collagen fibers start to break down, it's harder and harder to keep our skin hydrated. So if we look, this is your skin right now. We have nice blood flow, we have lots of collagen fibers all through here, really nice skin. And then over here we can see blood flow is kind of limited, and if you look, there's not near as many collagen and elastic fibers in here. So this causes the skin to sag and wrinkle. So the reticular layer is also really important for body temperature. It actually has a lot of blood vessels that pretty much help you either cool down your body or can help keep your body warm. For example, let's say it's really cold out. We have this rich blood supply in the reticular layer of our dermis. Those are all capillaries. When it's really cold out, we actually vasoconstrict or make these capillary beds smaller. And in doing so, the blood stays more internal in our body, so we keep warmer. Now, if you're really hot, you vasodilate. So what we do is we open up all of these capillary beds in the dermis, and we're able to release heat from these capillary beds. If you have a friend, or maybe it's you, when you work out and you get like really red in the face, this is what's happening. Your blood vessels are actually getting up closer to the surface of your skin, and they're dilating to try to cool your body down. Alright, so we're going to end here today at skin color, and then we're going to continue on our next video and talk about why we have different skin color, and we're also going to talk about the different appendages of the skin.